You close your eyes and everything unravels. Your body remains in bed, motionless. But where exactly does your mind travel? Where does consciousness go when we sleep? If sleeping were merely resting, why does the mind create entire worlds, conversations and events that sometimes seem more vivid than reality itself? Science states that sleep is the time when the brain restores itself, but that barely scratches the surface. Why do we dream of things we have never seen? Why do some people report out-of-body experiences while sleeping? And if the brain is only resting, why does it remain more active at night than during wakefulness? The truth about consciousness during sleep appears to be much deeper than what we were told. To truly understand it, we need to dissect step by step what happens to our consciousness when we sleep. Is it confined to the brain, or is it something more? Because something is occurring, the brain does not completely shut down. In reality, it becomes even more active in many cases, even surpassing the daytime level. Most assume that sleep is a state of cerebral rest, but if we observe the neuronal activity, something very strange happens in the depths of deep sleep. The brain slows down, yes, but does not stop, and in that gap, something else takes control. However, at the moment you begin to dream, certain parts of the brain become as active, or even more so, as when we are awake. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and decision-making, becomes less active. Hence, dreams tend to seem strange, unpredictable, with no apparent logic. Meanwhile, the visual and emotional centers go into hyperactivity, generating vivid images and intense emotions. This raises an important question. If the brain is so active during dreams, how can we say that sleep is a state of rest? The truth is that the brain does not rest as we typically imagine. It does not switch off. It simply changes mode, ceasing to focus on the external world and turning inward to process, reorganize, and create. This may mean that consciousness does not disappear when we sleep, but is simply transferred to another level. And there's more. The brain produces DMT every night, dimethyltryptamine, an extremely potent psychedelic compound known to induce intense visions and experiences that many describe as otherworldly. Dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, is present in many plants and also in the human brain. That fact alone is fascinating. Scientists believe that the brain releases small amounts of DMT every night, especially when we enter the REM phase of sleep, the stage during which the most vivid dreams occur. This may explain why dreams sometimes seem so strange, yet at the same time deep and full of meaning. Many people who have consumed synthetic DMT report experiences remarkably similar to dreams. Journeys through impossible landscapes, encounters with unknown entities, sensations of receiving messages or hidden truths beyond rational understanding. But if the brain produces DMT naturally, does that mean that dreams are simply a form of hallucination? Or is there something even deeper happening while we sleep? If consciousness can be altered by a chemical substance generated within the body itself, if it can detach from everyday reality without external intervention, an even more unsettling question arises. Are we really living reality when we are awake, or merely a filtered, edited, and shaped version by the brain, while something much greater remains hidden behind that veil? Because there are dreams that are not only strange or symbolic, there are dreams that seem like warnings, fragments of something that has not yet occurred. Some appear completely random. Others, however, display with eerie precision events that have not yet taken place. Throughout history, many people have reported premonitory dreams, nocturnal visions that announce deaths, catastrophes, encounters, or changes. And when these events occur in the real world, even in minute details, the line between the real and the oniric begins to dissolve. Studies on precognitive dreams have found cases in which patterns, symbols, or even exact images appear in the mind before manifesting in reality. Could it be mere chance, coincidence, or some form of perception that we still do not understand? If the dream is an altered state, and within it we can see beyond what our senses capture, then perhaps the night is not just a time of rest. Perhaps it is a door, and what exists on the other side has been watching us all along. Some may think that dreams are simply the product of chance, senseless electrical discharges in a resting brain. But there are experiences that suggest otherwise, and they are not as rare as we might imagine. One of the best-known cases is that of President Abraham Lincoln. Days before being assassinated, Lincoln shared with close associates a disturbing dream. He dreamt that he was walking through the White House in a silent and oppressive atmosphere. Upon arriving at a hall, he saw a coffin surrounded by soldiers. He asked, "Who died?" The answer, "The president was assassinated." Shortly after, the vision became reality. Was it just a coincidence? An incredible chance? Perhaps. But thousands of ordinary people report similar experiences. Someone dreams of a person they haven't seen in years, only to encounter them the next day. Another dreams of an event, a conversation, an accident, a specific mundane scene, and then witnesses exactly that unfolding, detail by detail. This raises an unsettling question. If dreams are just random brain activity, why do they sometimes bring precise information about things that have not yet happened? One theory suggests that during sleep, consciousness is freed from the limitations of linear time, that in this altered state, it can access fragments of information that lie beyond common perception, as if time, as we understand it, ceases to be a line, and the mind can traverse it like a vast ocean, touching past, present, and future simultaneously. And this leads us to another equally disconcerting phenomenon, sleep paralysis. If sleep were merely a passive process, a simple sensory disconnection of the body, why do some people wake up trapped in their own bodies, fully conscious, yet unable to move? Sleep paralysis occurs when the mind awakens, but the body remains asleep. The most disturbing aspect, however, is not the paralysis itself, but what happens during that interval. Many people report an intense sense of presence in the room, not just a simple visual hallucination, but something beyond that, a crushing certainty that someone or something is there. A figure in the corner of the room, a shadow moving silently, an entity that observes without a face, without a name, but with a perceptible intention. Could this be merely a distortion of the brain between sleep and wakefulness? Or is it that in these liminal moments, consciousness perceives something real that normally remains hidden? Science offers neurochemical explanations for sleep paralysis, but even experts acknowledge that there are aspects of the phenomenon that are not entirely clear, especially because people from different cultures and eras, without having any contact with each other, describe similar experiences. Perhaps the dream is not just an internal theater of nonsensical symbols. Perhaps it is a fissure, a momentary rupture in the wall that separates the known from the unknown. And what sometimes crosses that gap does not always wish to be seen. What is truly unsettling is that people around the world, regardless of culture, beliefs, or personal background, describe the same experience during episodes of sleep paralysis. The majority report seeing a dark figure, a humanoid silhouette that appears beside the bed or in a corner of the room. It has no face, does not utter words, but its presence is deeply felt. Many say that it generates an unbearable pressure on the chest, as if the very air became dense. Others claim to feel a fixed, penetrating gaze, as if that entity knew them profoundly and was expecting something. The inevitable question is, why do people who do not know each other, who live in different countries, who do not share language, religion, or cultural context, describe the same form, the same sensation, the same terror? The conventional explanation suggests that it is an hallucination resulting from the confusion between the states of sleep and wakefulness, a neurological error, a glitch in the transition. But if it were merely a malfunction of the brain, shouldn't the hallucinations vary from person to person? Yet that does not occur. The shadow is almost universal. This leads us to an even more disturbing possibility. What if sleep paralysis is not a glitch, but a breach? And if, in that liminal state, when the body is asleep but the mind awakens, consciousness becomes unmoored and sees something that is normally hidden, watching us from the threshold? And the most disconcerting question, what if we truly shouldn't see it? This brings us to another equally intriguing phenomenon, lucid dreaming. Most of the time we dream without knowing that we are dreaming. We are carried along by images, events, and emotions like leaves floating in a river. But there are those who, in the middle of the dream, awaken, not in the physical world, but within the dream itself. They realize that they are dreaming and can then take control, shape the environment, fly, rewrite the laws of physics, create people or places at will. For brief moments, they become the architects of their own oniric reality. This phenomenon is called lucid dreaming, and what it reveals is profoundly telling. When we sleep, our mind is not passive. It remains active, conscious, awake on another level. Scientific studies on lucid dreaming show that, during these episodes, a very specific area of the brain is activated, the prefrontal cortex. This region is responsible for self-awareness, critical thinking, and the ability to recognize oneself as a thinking being. In other words, amid the dream, when the body is motionless and the external world disappears, the mind is capable of recalling itself, deciding, acting, and taking control of a universe that until then seemed governed by chaos. This not only challenges the idea that sleep is a passive state, it also suggests that consciousness is much more flexible, expansive, and complex than we understand. If we can awaken within a dream and make conscious decisions, how different are these dreams from what we call reality? And if at certain moments we can manipulate this oniric reality, is our daily perception not also subject to filters and limits imposed by our biology? And what if those limits could be broken? Perhaps lucid dreams, like sleep paralysis, are not anomalies but doorways, and perhaps we are not alone on the other side. This means that even when you sleep, a part of you remains awake, a spark of consciousness that, amid unreal worlds, still knows it exists. But this raises a fundamental question. If dreaming were merely random brain activity, why do we have the ability to realize we are dreaming and control that world? Why is there within us this ancestral ability, as if it had been placed there by something greater? Some scientists see this as a mere neurological accident, but others, psychologists, philosophers, and investigators of the mysterious, dare to go further. They believe that lucid dreams are not just a mental trick, but evidence that consciousness is not entirely bound to the physical world, that what we call the mind can operate independently of the body, and that lucid dreaming is one of the rare states in which this separation clearly manifests. And there is another phenomenon that reinforces this idea: the way time behaves in dreams. All of us at some point have dreamt of long, complex experiences, full of scenes, dialogues, and transitions, only to wake up and find that only a few minutes have passed since we closed our eyes. Dreams that seem to last hours, sometimes even days, even though the clock shows that barely 20 minutes have elapsed. For a long time, this was considered merely an illusion, a distortion of perception caused by the lack of external stimuli. However, recent research is changing that interpretation. Scientific investigations demonstrate that during the REM phase of sleep, when the most vivid and emotionally charged dreams occur, the brain seems to operate with an internal clock distinct from that of wakefulness. Neurons activate in different patterns, cognitive networks reorganize, and, most surprisingly, the perception of time undergoes measurable alterations. In fact, there are people who experience lucid dreams and have participated in elaborate experiments to measure this temporal distortion within the dream. They are given instructions to perform specific tasks, count seconds, solve simple problems, repeat sequences, and then, upon waking, their subjective experience is compared to the real time recorded externally. The results are surprising. In many cases, time within the dream extends beyond real time. It not only seems longer, it actually is longer. This phenomenon is called dream time dilation, and although not yet fully understood, it suggests something unsettling, that time, as we experience it, may not be an objective constant, but rather a construct that the mind is capable of manipulating under certain circumstances. If that is true, then the world of dreams does not consist solely of a chaotic jumble of images and emotions. It is its own territory, where the laws of the physical world dissolve, where time, identity, and logic can be reconfigured by will. And if we can remain conscious in that environment, if we can count time, make decisions, solve problems, and maintain our memories, then perhaps it is not so different from what we call reality. Possibly the only difference is that in that realm, no one dictates what is or isn't possible, and that, in itself, might be the key to understanding something much greater. Not only who we are, but what we could become when we finally remember how to navigate between worlds. This implies that consciousness within dreams may not be subject to the same rules that govern our waking life, and this very idea raises a colossal question. If the mind can experience time differently while dreaming, what other laws could be broken in that state? And if consciousness, what we truly are, is not strictly tethered to physical reality? And if instead of being confined to the body and linear time, consciousness is something much vaster, capable of moving, shaping internal realities and perceiving dimensions that are normally hidden? Perhaps dreams are not mere symbolic constructions or echoes of everyday experiences, but direct evidence that time, as we understand it, is only a mental structure, an illusion that the brain projects to help us function in the physical world, rather than a fixed law, but rather a perception that can be bent, stretched, or even dissolved. And here we tread on even deeper ground, the connection between dreams and multiverse theory. One of the strangest and most revealing elements of dreams is their intensity, the way some dream worlds appear vivid, real and solid, as if they were not creations but places actually visited. Some people dream of unknown environments, cities they have never been to, houses that do not exist in waking life, but which in the dream exhibit an internal logic, coherent architecture, and an atmosphere so consistent that it seems impossible to have been randomly generated by the mind. Others have recurring dreams in the same scenarios. Night after night, year after year, familiar streets in the dream yet completely unrelated to the physical world. People they know in that context, emotions that exist only there, and the constant feeling of having inhabited that place on some other level of existence. These experiences, although strange, are common and align in an unsettling way with one of the most revolutionary ideas in theoretical physics, the multiverse theory. According to this hypothesis, there are infinite versions of the universe, parallel realities that coexist simultaneously, where every possibility manifests in some line of existence. There is a universe in which you made different choices, another in which you were never born, and possibly one in which you lead a completely different life while dreaming. If this theory is correct, then dreams may be more than random mental activity. They may represent consciousness momentarily tuning into other realities. As if, while the body sleeps and the ego dissolves, consciousness frees itself enough to transit between worlds. And perhaps when dreaming, we are not creating universes from scratch, but recalling others in which we also exist. Imagine what that implies. That dreams are not just messages from the unconscious, nor remnants of daily experiences, but temporary portals to other versions of yourself, other selves that live, feel and breathe in worlds beyond our own. And when you dream of these strange yet curiously familiar places, when you wake up with an unusual nostalgia for a life you cannot pinpoint, perhaps it is not just a dream. Maybe you are returning. And what if dreams are not merely the product of imagination? Some emerging theories, although still not recognized by conventional science, raise an intriguing idea that dreams may not be simple mental projections, but glimpses of parallel realities. According to this perspective, when we dream, we are not just imagining scenarios, but consciousness is temporarily moving to other versions of reality, versions in which our choices were different, in which events followed distinct paths, in which other selves live parallel existences that we would never know while awake. Although science has not yet validated this hypothesis, the notion that dreams serve as passageways to other realms is not new. In fact, it has been present for centuries in various cultures, religions, and philosophies. In several ancient spiritual traditions, from the shamans of the Amazon to the sages of Tibet, it is posited that dreams allow one to travel outside common existence, not as a metaphor, but as a literal experience, a means by which the soul, the spirit, or consciousness escapes the limitations of the physical body and explores dimensions that transcend time and space. Whether this is true or not remains an open question, but the complexity, emotional charge, and symbolic depth of many dreams suggest that there is something more than mere random electrical discharges in the brain. Many people dream of places they have never visited, of emotions that cannot be explained, of encounters that leave deep marks, as if they had actually happened, and upon waking, they carry with them a strange sensation of having been somewhere else, as if the body had merely been waiting. There is yet another question that accompanies this mystery. Why do we forget our dreams so easily? You wake up after an intense experience. You remember everything, colors, words, emotions, and you are certain you will never forget. But within a few minutes, everything fades, and within an hour, it is as if nothing happened. Why does this occur? If dreams were truly absurd and insignificant, why would the brain exert so much effort to erase them? A common explanation, derived from neuroscience, states that during sleep, especially in the REM phase, when we dream most intensely, the activity of the hippocampus is altered. The hippocampus is the region of the brain responsible for consolidating memories, converting experiences into lasting memories. However, during sleep, this area does not operate as it does during wakefulness. That is, although we have intense experiences while dreaming, they are not properly encoded as permanent memories. They do not follow the same storage logic as our conscious records. But even this explanation raises new questions. If the brain does not deem dream experiences relevant, why does it experience them with such realism? Why dream with such intensity, with pain, pleasure, fear, or desire? Why create complete worlds that later dissipate like smoke? Some researchers believe that the forgetting of dreams is not a mistake, but a form of psychic protection. Perhaps the content of dreams, if fully remembered, would drastically alter our perception of reality. It is possible that we live on a kind of mental frontier. We remember just enough to avoid going insane, and forget enough to continue believing that the real is only what happens with our eyes open. But what if dreams are a kind of communication from other layers of our being, and every night we forget fragments of other lives, other worlds, other selves? And what if forgetting is not a limitation, but a rule imposed by something greater, something that does not wish for us to remember too much? Some scholars assert that we forget dreams because they serve a different function from conscious experiences. They are not intended to be archived as daily memories, but rather processed and, in large part, discarded. In other words, the brain dreams to clear, reorder, restructure, and then move on. However, there is another, even more intriguing view, that forgetting dreams is actually a form of mental protection. Consider, if we remembered all of our dreams as clearly as we remember what we did the day before, our notion of reality might become confused. The boundaries between the dream world and wakefulness would become dangerously blurred. So perhaps the brain is programmed to filter these experiences, preventing us from mixing the worlds we visit while sleeping with the one in which we live when awake. Yet something challenges this logic. Certain dreams do not fade away. On the contrary, they stay with us for years, sometimes for a lifetime. Dreams that left a deep emotional mark, that seem to contain a message that, even if brief, changed something within us. This suggests that not all dreams are the same, that certain oniric experiences may have a greater significance than we are able to comprehend at that moment. Perhaps we do not remember all of them because we are not ready to fully understand them. There is a widely spread myth that says if you die in a dream, you die in real life. However, the experience of millions of people shows the opposite. Many have dreamed of their own death, in accidents, falls, confrontations, and awoken unscathed, though often with a strange feeling as if something deep had changed within them. So what does it mean to die in a dream? Some researchers suppose that when we die in a dream, the mind is simulating a borderline experience, with death serving as a symbol of transformation. And in many cases, that is how it feels. People who have had dreams in which they died report waking up with a sense of renewal, clarity, or even liberation, as if something old had ended and something new had begun. Symbolically, death in a dream can represent the closing of a chapter, the overcoming of trauma, or a profound change in perception. It is not a literal end, but a psychological rebirth. There is also another point. From a neurological perspective, deep sleep and death share certain traits. In both, consciousness separates from the physical body, bodily functions decrease, and external stimuli lose relevance. Moreover, there are disturbing reports. People who have experienced near-death experiences describe sensations very similar to those in the dream universe, floating out of the body, traversing tunnels, encountering luminous beings, reviewing memories of an entire life, images and emotions that also appear in incredibly vivid and transcendental dreams. This has led some to suggest that dreams might be a form of rehearsal for the final crossing, an unconscious rehearsal, night after night, that prepares us to let go of the body, the ego, time, and finally cross over to the other side. Whether this idea is true or not, we cannot know for sure. What is clear is that dreams go far beyond simple mechanisms of rest. They reveal dark facets of consciousness, distort time, alter space and, in some cases, connect with experiences that seem to transcend life itself. What happens in dreams remains shrouded in mystery, but there is one thing we can say without hesitation. Sleeping is not just sleeping. It is a door, an entrance to the unknown, to that which we were never taught to see, to what we are only beginning to understand. If you have read this far, comment below with the word 100% to confirm that you have received the complete knowledge of this journey. And if you wish to continue exploring the darkest and most fascinating recesses of the human mind, be sure to watch the next video that now appears on your screen. Thank you for opening your eyes amid the dream.